Heavenly Father, we are grateful for today. We know that it is the day that you have made. We come to you now seeking your wisdom and your discernment and ask you for the words that will reach people, that will bring comfort to people, that will help people understand that they are not alone as a military spouse, as a geographically single mother or father for that matter. Just help us to be kind and clear and to bring the message that you would have us bring. And I pray all these things in your Son's name. Amen.
Amen.
Okay. Hi, I'm Paula Dayringer with Pleasant Valley Counseling Center. And today's podcast is about the challenges of being the spouse of a deployed military member, whether they be soldier, sailor, Marine, Coast Guard. There are all times when the military member leaves home. In this day and age, that is the normal. Since 2003, and when the War on Terror began, soldiers and sailors, Marines have been deployed worldwide at some point. The sun never sets on the United States Armed Forces. So today I have with me a young lady by the name of Samantha. Samantha is the spouse of a young man who was recently deployed. And so she's going to tell us about some of the challenges that she faced as a geographically single military spouse and mom. Yeah. So Sam, why don't you tell us a little bit about you?
All right. I'm happy to be here. My name's Sam. I am a mother of two. We have a 2-year-old and a 10-month-old now. I was a nurse prior to having our second child, and and I'm the spouse of a Army soldier. He is a pilot. He was just deployed for the second time since we've been together, and this time I was pregnant when he left with our second one, and he didn't meet her until he got home. He just got home about a month ago, and now we are in the reintegration phase, but there was a lot of life that was lived during that year that was on my own and virtually with him. So,
yeah. And so how long was he deployed this time?
He was gone for almost a year. It was a little over 11 months.
Okay. And was he deployed before?
Yes, he was deployed back in 2017, and that was for 9 months.
Okay. And you were or weren't married at that time?
We were dating at that time.
Okay.
So, yeah, we had just started dating about 5 months prior to him leaving. And then he was gone for 9 months.
Wow. You've had a really busy 4 or 5 years.
Yes, we have.
So what was it like to be, so I want to make sure I got the timeline. So he was deployed for the first time. You guys married after that, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And then Cooper, your oldest,
yeah,
was born. And so how old was your oldest when your husband was deployed for the second time?
He was 15 months old when our oldest was 15 months, and then I was just entered into my 3rd trimester with our second.
Wow.
So
was that scary?
Terrifying.
Terrifying, yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think was the scariest part?
The unknowns.
Right.
The unknowns of what, in regards to our baby that I was pregnant with, it was the unknowns of birth without my spouse there. And then parenting a newborn and 2 children under 2 by myself with my husband thousands of miles away. I'm grateful for a network surrounding us. We had both sides of the family were here.
Wow.
So I was able to lean on both of them. But yeah, definitely the birth, the idea of having a baby without my spouse was probably the most terrifying thought. And then parenting by myself the thought of that was terrifying. And then what it was going to be like when he came home. I started thinking of that well before they left. just the reintegration phase and what that would look like with 2 kids, one of which would be almost 9 months old and had never met him. So all of that was terrifying.
Have you ever counted up like the months that you've lived together versus the months that you've been apart?
Yes. Yeah, I think when we were dating and engaged, the time spent apart was greater than the time we had in person together. But then he was home for a while in between the 2 deployments, so the timing went off, but the thinking about him leaving again and the thinking about him being apart and the time we had spent apart never shut off.
So you worried about that? That was like a grinding worry in the back of your mind?
Of him leaving?
Uh-huh.
Absolutely.
Oh.
I found out during the first deployment that from another spouse, as we were sitting down to dinner, she brought up the next deployment, and that caught me way off guard. Because I was just trying to get through that one. So finding out that there was another planned one, my heart just dropped. And so getting married, having kids, moving, I knew it was like it was ticking down until he would leave again. So a lot of that time, probably some anxiety that I had was a lot of memory making. And wanting to make memories for myself, for our children, and for him.
Yeah. But did you find yourself trying to make everything perfect? So.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I want him to have good memories of our time together and his time as a dad. And we were also in the middle of a pandemic during that time, so that coupled on top of everything was very stressful.
Yeah. Now, if I remember right, you had some involvement with the family readiness group.
Mm-hmm.
Was that something that helped you stay connected with what was going on, or was it something different?
Yeah, it was. The first time that he was deployed, we weren't married, and I was working and didn't have any kids, so I had a lot of time to do that kind of stuff and to be social. And during the first deployment, I found that very comforting. It was really nice to be surrounded by women who, in my case, mostly women, who understood what I was going through. It's great to have people to talk to, and but you don't get the understanding you get when you're talking to a spouse that is going through what you are going through. Mm-hmm. So, my involvement during that deployment was mostly to just gain friendships and invest in time with getting to know the soldiers' wives. And we had a lot of fun. We did some social activities, and that was great. Then this deployment came, and it was a little bit different. I think a lot of the wives that had gone through the last one had that response as well, that there was just a lot going on. Mental health was a very big struggle for the soldiers and for the family members back home. We had multiple deaths during the deployment, and family members of the soldiers. There was just, if you ask any of the spouses that I was connected with, I would say every one of them thought that this one was harder, that this one was really hard. There's just a lot of things working against us. I guess I don't really know the cause for it, but so this one was a little bit harder. There were lots more babies involved with this deployment, so with that can come some isolation. We would try to push past that and try to make time with each other, but and we got together some. It was harder. This time I was in charge of the FRG and
the family readiness group.
Yes. And that proved to be very difficult with a newborn and a 2-year-old, and I was barely holding my head above water, and I felt a great pressure to also help other women and stay connected, and so that was difficult, but they kind of seemed to create their own friendship groups, and that kind of helped too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So when your husband was deployed, how did you communicate, or did you have the opportunity to?
With my husband?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. FaceTime was great. We had iPhones, so FaceTime and texting when we could. They have Wi-Fi over there overseas that you can pay for. And, yeah, we got to FaceTime. It's hard. His experience this time, the first deployment, he was in his own room. This deployment, he was with a roommate the entire time or in barracks. So there was constantly somebody around. Having quality conversations were few and far between. I could probably count on two hands how many quality conversations we had over the span of 11 and a half months. Which is...
That sounds like it might have taken a toll.
Yeah, it does take a toll. I mean, when you don't get to talk to your spouse in a meaningful way, and I think for the soldier to have an opportunity to be vulnerable with their significant other, I would think that would cause, that would just be hard to do. So texting was probably how we communicated the most, and then FaceTime with the kids as much as possible. But
so when you talked earlier about the unknowns, were there unknowns, and you mentioned specifically the birth of your daughter, but were there the unknowns as far as his deployment, or did you have a really good idea of like when it was happening, what was happening, where he was going? No. Okay. So was it all under the name of what they call operational security? So
OPSEC, yeah.
OPSEC, yeah.
Yes and no. I think the location, probably within the last year or so, they started figuring out where they were going to go. Time-wise, actually probably about a year in advance we knew,
Okay.
I would say. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure we had a little bit of time.
Okay. So in this case, he went to an established area.
Correct.
So that wasn't unknown. So
Correct.
Did that help any to like know where he was going?
Yes, that did help. I mean, Google, you can find anything. So
Right?
I'm looking up and looking at the satellite images. I'm like, where is he? What what is life like around him? There were areas that he did go to that he couldn't disclose the location to me. But I had a roundabout idea of I knew the country he was in and the city that he was in. So, yes, that definitely helped.
Yeah. So how did you survive the geographical single parenthood? What were your coping methods?
Family. I became decent at asking for help. I'm horrible, and I have read and listened to podcasts, and I think that majority of military spouses are not good at asking for help because we don't want to come off as weak or that we can't handle something. And when I read that, it definitely, and heard those words, that definitely hit home because I don't want to come off in that way. Asking for help was a very big struggle at the beginning, and I think I got probably into survival mode after having a baby, where I was like, for my sanity, I need help. Like, I can't continue to be home 24/7 with the babies and not have a break. I need, so figuring out what that was, trying as best I could when we would go on walks to put my, my headphones in and listening to a podcast or listening to music. I could come up with a whole list of things that helped, but solo parenting, we did a lot of things prior to Mason leaving that helped prepare our son. He was 15 months old when he left, so it's a really hard age. You can't explain to a 15-month-old that their dad's leaving and they have no concept of time.
Right.
So our thought process was to keep Mason in the house as much as possible, and we went to Build-A-Bear and got a bear with a voice recording in it and put that in his crib so he could push the hand whenever. And there were multiple times he went to bed and I would be sitting downstairs and I would hear, "Hey Cooper, I love you, you're my best buddy." And I was like, where where's that? That's Mason. Where's that coming from? And it would over and over and over and over again. And he would put himself to sleep sometimes just pushing that button.
Wow. What a great idea.
Yeah, he loved that. And I loved hearing his voice. We did like little daddy dolls, and I'm sure they do mommy. Oh, they're called Hug a Hero dolls. Mm-hmm. So it was Mason in a little pillow, and so he could hold that and hug that, which he loved to carry Dad around. Mason there's multiple reading programs that soldiers can do overseas, which are awesome. I don't know if they take advantage of those or not, but you can basically build a library for your child at home. And the soldier records themselves reading the book, and then the family member is sent that book for free, plus the recording of the soldier. So we had multiple nights where I was able to ask Cooper, do you want Mom or Dad to put you to bed? And most of the time it was Dad. So we watched those recordings a lot. And we had the books as well, so Cooper could follow along. And They're now with technology, I think there's so many ways to stay connected with the soldier that probably weren't around,
right?
10 years ago.
Depending on where the soldier's located.
Yeah.
So as we kind of wrap things up here, if there were a couple of tidbits of advice you would love for military spouses, or military spouses, those left behind, so to speak, what would you recommend, or what advice would you give?
Find your group of people prior to the deployment. If you are, I think it's fun to find friendships during the deployment, but having those core people, important people in your life prior to a deployment, to be able to have myself speaking, the beginning of a deployment is the hardest. So having people around, you just kind of want to, from my experience, I just wanted to kind of crawl into a hole and just cry. So having people that will give you space to do that, but also coming over and kind of forcing you out of your comfort zone. So having a good group of people prior to deployment. If you are a parent and your spouse is leaving, please find a babysitter prior to, so that you have or a parent stay out, or some trusted place that you'd be able to take the kids so that you can have a break. We joined the YMCA, and it was just refreshing knowing that I had a place to take the kids for 2 hours should I need a break. Yeah. So being resourceful with that, and then really trying to better yourself during the deployment, whether that's physically, spiritually, mentally, all of the above. It was kind of big for me to not be the same person when my husband got home, to not be the same person I was when he left. So obviously I'm not going to change completely, but I wanted to be able to better myself. And so I felt good when he came home that I had worked on things personally. And don't waste that time away. Don't wish the time away. It's really hard, but you will get through it. And you will come out on top. Don't wish it away, because there's so much room for growth during the deployment.
Mm-hmm.
And
And last question, how do you feel like this season in your life has impacted your spirituality or your faith?
I would say the 2 deployments that we've had have been the times where my faith has increased and grown the most. I have explained it to other people that, when my spouse is not around, how often and how frequently I rely on him, and I depend on him for, connection, for growth, somebody to talk to. And when I don't have that option because he's sleeping at the time that I'm up and the kids are asleep, and I don't have my spouse there to talk to,
because you're half a world
because
apart.
We're separated by time. and distance that I had God. And being able to, do devotionals, do small groups. I was in a couples group by myself for the 11 months. So, get involved in church, get involved, find a community, find people who are going to pray for you. They might have absolutely no idea what you're going through, but they're going to cover you in prayer, and find people who will just speak God's truth over you and love on you. And during that time, because that was huge for me. That was huge for my faith walk, to do things by myself with God.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. Well, Sam, is there anything else you'd like to share, or I'd give you the last word here?
No, I would just,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate you coming in.
Absolutely.
Appreciate your time. Appreciate your perspective.
Thank you.
I have been the military spouse left home, and I have been the soldier downrange. And I will tell you that for me, being left at home was the harder. Soldiers don't like me to tell that. But it's the truth. So my hat is off to you.
Thank you.
Yeah.